good time to have you. I felt like, energy-wise, it was a good time to reconnect as well. And you've had a lot going on, which I'm excited to talk about as well. But obviously, the latest stuff that I've been seeing is, your workshops on, all like your yoga, your Qi Gong, ice baths. Talk a little bit about how that came about and how you kind of started focusing and going down that lane.
Yeah, for sure. So really nice to be here as well. I think like the synchronicity of it lining up perfectly, like within days of like messaging each other. But yeah, with the workshops, so last year I had my 10-year anniversary as a PT and a massage therapist. And I felt this shift within me and in the platform that I offer, New For You Whole Body Health, and how I could kind of take it to the next level and evolve everything that I have to offer, because beyond personal training and remedial massage, I've developed skills in Qi Gong, in yoga, both Vinyasa and Yin Yoga, experiences training with Wim Hof, learning ice bath method and breathwork, and all different types of training modalities to kind of pursue optimal health in the most holistic way possible. And so Journey Through the Elements came about with my emblem being the 5 elements. We have fire, wind, spirit, earth, and water. And I linked each of the different practices that I'm skilled in with each of the elements. And I wanted something to offer the people that combines everything that I do, because growing up, I was never really drawn to niching into one aspect or avenue of health. I like diversity, I like variation, and if I was to pick a niche, it would be health, because health is so diverse and so varied. And so this workshop came about to combine all of these practices together as an offering to my students and to newcomers as well, to experience something new and to learn more about themselves through these practices. Personally, on my journey, I've discovered a lot about myself through breath and through movement. And through these practices as well, it's helped me unlock a better understanding of what my body can do, what my mind can do, and how I can really demonstrate that to other people. So that's been Journey Through the Elements. Yeah.
So the elements that you mentioned, how do they directly correlate with what you're teaching?
Perfect. So in the Journey Through the Elements workshop, we open the space with a cacao ceremony, so raw cacao. It's basically chocolate, but before it gets heat treated and all that. The Mayans used to have it before they went to war, and it's a bit of a like a sacred type of tradition. And so we open the space with that. We set an intention. We drink together. And it kind of initiates us into, exploring something new. For a lot of people, they've never done Qigong before, or breathwork, or ice bath, or anything like that. And so we begin with fire, which is Qigong. We activate the inner fire. So in Qigong, which is the foundation of Tai Chi, you have 3 main energy centers, the dantians. The dantian is just another name for energy field. And you can think of it like a furnace that burns, and it's activated through our breath work and through our movement. And so we do that with Qigong to activate our inner fire. And it also helps to warm us, because an ice bath, isn't the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, not the most comfortable thing. Yeah.
And then we move into the air element, which is breath work. So we move from fire into breath, and we use the breath to help synchronize mind and body, and to really bring us more into ourselves, out of the mind and more into the body. And it's through this synchronization that we're able to consciously overpower or take back control of subconscious reflexes or reactions, because as soon as you go into the ice bath, a natural response is to gasp for air and to shrug the shoulders and to kind of pant and breathe. And it's just a natural reflex. It's a survival mechanism. But through conscious control of our breath, we can overpower that and make it quite an enjoyable experience. So the ice bath is linked with the water element. So we move into that. And you only need 2 to 3 minutes in there to receive the benefits. Anything more than that,
like submerged, like 2 to 3. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's crazy, because there's all these different kind of variations of how to use it and stuff, right? Like like being in and then being out, and then kind of being in and then kind of mixing it up with warm,
heat.
Heat and etc. But so you reckon 2 to 3 minutes just being in there is
2 to 3 minutes. Like you can do the contrast work where you go hot and cold. Many ways to peel an apple.
It's a mental build up for something like that. That's why, it's like there is benefit to it, because I've done it. Both ice and cry. I think both are different in its own way. But water being more the natural. way of going about it. Yeah.
And one of the main reasons I support doing ice baths regularly, like I hold these workshops monthly and soon bi-monthly, is because when we, were hunter-gatherers, we were more in sync with nature. And it's only recently, since industrialization and, the concrete jungle of the city, that we don't often spend enough time in nature, or we fall out of sync. And I find that synchronicity is more harmonious to optimal health. And we are designed to get cold, and our bodies are designed to adapt to being cold. But if we're always warm and we're not exposed to this element, then it puts us out of balance. And so by doing the ice bath, you help to resync yourself with nature to bring about more harmony and balance in the body. And then after the ice bath, we move into the Yin Yoga, which is a very gentle form of yoga. Every posture is either seated or lying down, and it's very relaxing. And we hold each pose for 3 to 5, sometimes even 7 minutes. And it's a grounding practice, the Qi Gong, the breathwork, the ice bath. It's very invigorating, very uplifting. But after that, it's time to balance that by bringing the energy back down and relaxing. And it's during that I perform sound healing as well. So I use crystal bowls and the didgeridoo, or the yidaki, which is symbolic of the spirit element of sound. And I combine those two together because I find it's a really nice way to relax and to kind of allow the mind to switch off during each pose, and just allow the sounds to kind of take over and to fill the mind instead of thoughts. So they're the 5 elements.
It's crazy. And so from each one, is there, like, how does it kind of work on the day? Like, is it consequently like you go on one after another, or
it's
that's
essentially
crazy, man.
It's back to
That's
back.
like overload. Like,
A little bit
amazing. But I'm like overload in such a, like, because each element on its own does wonders for you.
Yes.
In its own way, right? Just the idea of, like, and I've done most, if not all, that you're mentioning, right, at some point. And I'm just thinking, like, how good would that actually,
it's like a supercharge.
Yeah, it's
basically.
like massive. Yeah. Like, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. What has the feedback, and what has kind of what has the people that have, like, partaken in this, what has their feedback kind of been like? And also just, I guess, anyone that you may know at a more deeper level, like, what's the kind of effect it's had on people, running these workshops?
So it's been varied, but the main feedback I've received has been the energy levels. People are astounded at how much energy they get from the practice, even after just Qi Gong itself, which is an energy cultivation practice. And that's quite amazing to see and to hear, because people realize they have this reservoir of energy within them that's always there, and they can tap into it through the movement and through the breath work. And it's really nice to see that, because a lot of the time energy levels can stop us doing things that we enjoy doing. We might want to go to the gym after work, but we've had a big day, and so we just want to rest and unwind. So energy has been a big one. And then the second I really enjoy having seen is belief in self-belief. Doing something like an ice bath. I've had a few students, the first 2 workshops, they didn't want to do the ice bath, and it's all optional. Nothing is like, you have to do this. Like, it's an invitation to do it, and you're free to watch if you don't feel called to do it. And after the first 2 workshops, I've had students jump in on the third and realize, no, this is like an experience that I wanted to do. I knew it was a challenge. It was something I've wanted to do, but I haven't, had the opportunity to do it, or it hasn't been available. And then just the act of doing something different and creating change in someone's life, and just having that change inspire more change and more growth, and especially belief in self. Having gone from thinking, oh no, that's not for me, I could never do that, and then doing it and realizing, wow, like, I can do more than I give myself credit for. And it's really nice to see that self-belief, because it's like a light kind of brightens in someone's eyes. And
it's there's something about not just uncomfortable, but just doing it, and then that growth that you get from doing it. It's hard to put into words until you experience it, but like you said, it just untaps and unlocks and gives you this light bulb moment of just potential, like what you're capable of doing. You know what I mean? Talking a little bit about the ice bath, I want to kind of stay on that. you know, obviously there's you know, there's benefits and it's, you know, kind of, if you Google it and research it, it's quite common, right? People can, you know, kind of research it. But based on like your perspective, even in terms of just having the ice bath, like in terms of like temperature and certain things like that, like is there like specifics to that in terms of the benefits and kind of the rewards you get back from going through that, doing that experience?
Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah.
So with the ice bath, as I think typically it's 8 degrees or less, the water. Obviously, the colder it gets, the more your body is going to have to adapt to stay warm. But the whole adaptation process is after you submerge yourself into the ice and you stay with the breath and you let that conscious control overpower the subconscious reflex of wanting to gasp for air or to shiver. And what happens is your veins in your limbs constrict and the veins in your torso dilate. And so all of the blood remains, or a lot of the warm blood stays circulating in the torso and not so much in the limbs. So you actually get quite warm through the torso. You have brown fat, so different to white fat. Brown fat is fat that burns fat and actually keeps you warm. So it's a good fat to have. White fat is just, it's just, you know, friction kind of thing. And the brown fat in your back area gets activated and you just feel this, usually takes about 20 to 40 seconds of the conscious breathing, this wave of warmth to go over your body. And so in doing that, your heart rate starts to lower and starts to drop. Your immunity is boosted. You release a few happy hormones in the process. But when the temperature is kind of, usually it's between maybe say 12 to 16 or 18 degrees, your body doesn't have enough of a reason to adapt. It's cold and it's uncomfortable, but it's not that enough that your body goes, okay, now we need to, you know, adapt and create change. So personally, I believe from experience and from taking students through it, the colder the better.
Colder the better.
Yeah, it's a fast adaptation. Your body doesn't have any gray area. Oh, is it cold enough? Is it not? It's just no, adapt.
And so what was it? So it was Yin Yoga, right?
Yin Yoga
following, and then you had
sound healing,
and
that's it.
That's it. Yeah, sound healing.
Let me just eat and talk. And laugh and joke. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about. I mean, I know with yoga, I mean, it's kind of a common practice, right, these days anyway. But talk a little bit about, because I think, you know, especially in the day and age we live in, right, you're talking about like this, you know, this concrete city jungle, like the lifestyle and the way we live, like we get to a certain point where we're trying to find the one size fits all, just to kind of, even if it means recharging, even if it means getting ourselves kind of, you know, like you say, the yin and the yang, right? Getting that right balance to hash out the week in your daily, you know, routines and whatever. But it seems like you said, the different elements, they all cater for something different, you know, to do with ourselves and in terms of how we repair ourselves and how we kind of benefit ourselves, right? So yoga has its own kind of aspect to it. Is that how you think we should be kind of recovering and recharging weekly, like a mix of everything, as opposed to you know, say someone just doing yoga as being that beneficial kind of, you know, to help them recover and recharge for the week or whatever it is. Like, do you find like a mix of everything is the way to go?
I find for me it is, and a few students, but my best advice would be listen to your body. Some people are more drawn to one practice than another, and I recommend find what you enjoy doing, because if you enjoy doing something, you'll do it a lot. And then if you do it a lot, you'll learn more about it, both the practice itself and yourself. So finding your passions and finding the things that you find enjoyable are really beneficial into keeping consistent with practices and a bit of momentum. When it comes to Yin Yoga, some students really love it and some students don't enjoy it too much, just because more students are drawn to invigorating activities, and slowing down it can be quite uncomfortable. But even that in itself has a lesson to be discovered or something to understand about the body. But it comes to a certain point in when, if you're wanting to explore what makes you uncomfortable and why, kind of thing. I think in today's society, Yin Yoga is very valuable because we're in a very go-go type of nature, and with the yin and the yang kind of analogy, I was taught this by one of my mentors, Charles Poliquin, and he talked of an oil burner, the yang being the flame and the oil being the fuel. And if you're all flame and no fuel, you'll burn out. And I see this a lot in modern society, kind of thing, where it's a regular thing, you know. And when you fuel yourself through recovery and through practices like Yin Yoga or whatever is unique to the individual, you have enough fuel, and then with that fuel you can burn brighter and burn longer without burning out, because you have that balance. And Yin Yoga is really good for that, because it teaches you to slow down. It teaches you that it's okay to stop for a moment, and to just be open in that state of flow.
Because I feel like that's some of the hurdles that even I've come across, like myself, you know, like just especially being a sucker for all these things and loving and enjoying it, right? Which is nothing wrong with it, right? It completely changed my life. Just I was just talking to someone before you even rocked up, and I was saying I hadn't spoken to him for months, almost, man, could be a year, you know what I mean? And I was saying you were coming on board, and I said, and I talked to him about my Qi Gong experience, and I was just telling him, like, since that day, like, it just opened up. That's why when you mentioned about confidence, man, like, when you talk about feeling like primal, but just not in a bad way, not in like a primal, like, you know, like carnage way, but primal meaning just on, like, it was the first time I ever felt like that, you know.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't just through just that. It was all the things, like, you know, I was training at the time, and you know, I was like weeks and weeks, maybe a month away from fighting, but it was the best I had felt. But just that experience, like having a deeper understanding. And one of the things I said to him was, it made me realize everything was internal. Like, everything was internal. Like, external things happen, but my internal, if I looked after my internal, it projected life differently to me, you know. And it's the first time I felt like that. It's the first time I felt like elevated, like I was just, you know, my ability to do whatever I wanted, my heart desired, I truly desired. I felt like I had the confidence to do it, you know. And that's not bullshit. Like, that's straight how I felt at that time. It was just, you know. And it also taught me that that's who I am. That's the kind of person I am. That's what I seek, and that's what I go searching for, is those like personal internal experiences. Because a lot of things that have like gone the way, even like I was just touching on, you know, the beautiful Bella Vista Hotel, and doing this podcast here, and being able to, you know, put visions together, like, you know, it's just like those type of experiences have always given me the confidence to believe I could do things like this. You know what I mean? And be able to, it may not seem big to others, but it's not about others, it's you, right? Like the satisfaction you get from doing it, it's hard to even share it, or it's hard for other people to kind of reciprocate it, you know, the same way. Others might be happy for you, may, you know, be elated for you, but the way you feel is the way you feel, you know? So, so I do agree with like the weekly, like, you know, because the one thing that I keep getting taught is that when I do like, say, mobility exercises, or when I do like, I do sit down and go through yoga, like a yoga practice, you know, even if it's to myself, because a lot of the poses I've done it over the years that, you know, I do know, right? It's more the environment and having that setting, because people don't realize how much of a part that plays, you know, in being able to be present in what you're doing, and having that right environment, right, with no distractions. So, but then just that instant gratification, and then how I feel afterwards. Sometimes, you know, I get mad at myself, because I'm like, why am I acting surprised? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, why am I acting surprised that I feel great? All of a sudden, that little things that are creeping in your mind, like that create anxiety, that create doubt, that creates unnecessary hurdles. Like they say, you know, when you think about things that hasn't happened yet, like you're just planting unnecessary seeds, because it hasn't happened yet. So you're playing out a scenario that hasn't even played out yet, you know? things like that, you know, just, you know, not just, I wouldn't just say just evaporates. It's just you learn to control it. You learn to control with your emotions, you know what I mean? So, like, that's why I feel like so many people should do it, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be one specific thing, but there are things and I think you come to really understand that things that seem so relevant are actually irrelevant, you know, in many facets, and not in a bad way, but in a sense that it's just unnecessary weight that you're putting on yourself that you really don't need to, or you have a different perspective and objective on what you're looking at, and, you know, kind of learn to deal with it all. Like you always say, what's the lesson in what you're being taught, you know? And all those things. And, you know, we'll get to you doing that online content stuff. So, but a lot of that stuff, the reason I resonate with it, and I think a lot of people do, but I think sometimes you can block it. And it's not till you do something like Qi Gong or even Yin Yoga, or even put yourself in uncomfortable positions like an ice, but, you know, you really start to realize, whoa, like, this shit is way bigger than, you know what I mean? And way more bigger than what I'm making it out to, like, you know what I mean? Like what the world is selling to me, you know what I mean? In terms of living, like in terms of just really living, you know, because of the way the world has become, we forget, like you said, going back to the beginning, that, man, we were out there, like we were out amongst the world, hunters and gatherers, you know, and I feel like that side being suppressed has brought out all these other things that, because sometimes even I trip out, I sit down, and it's funny, man, I've been thinking about that a lot the last couple of weeks, just a sense of living, right? Like how the world is and how people are, and, you know, you forget, like, man, it's not about just like slowing things down, but it's also just that, like, just that self-importance, like what are you doing, like, you know what I mean? And I feel like if you know what you're trying to do, the environment just kind of builds itself, you know, as opposed to constantly looking, you know, like constantly trying to find happiness, or, you know, find a sense of where things make sense, you know. So I was just trying to, it's just personally my experience from doing it, and that's why, you know, I've always wanted to, you know, spread the good word with, you know, with what you do as well, but even just chatting to you, because it's getting more harder, it's getting more trickier, there's more hurdles in life mentally as well now, with how the world is at the moment, right? I feel like it's more important now than ever.
100%. I feel like anything we do in life is to get a feeling out of it, to get something that feels good. We do, say, the ice bath, because later we feel good after. It's like, oh, I accomplished something, or I got you know, a physical high from being in the ice, or anything. And the practices that we do are irrelevant, but everything is almost trying to bring us more into the present moment. And I really learned this. I went freediving last year. I got to experience freediving, and it was another example of just becoming super, super present. And I remember when I did the Wim Hof experience and I climbed the mountain, you had no choice but to be present climbing the mountain. And then when I was freediving, it was the same thing. Like I think I got to, my max depth was like 17 meters. But even at 10, you're like, if I keep going, I have to prepare for the same distance coming back up on one breath. And so you have no choice but to be present, and to let that take you to however deep you wanted to dive, or to return you back to the surface. There's no room for anything else but to be present in order to accomplish it. And I find all of these practices are just different modalities that help bring us into the present moment. And then as a result, we feel good because we're present.
Sometimes you don't realize, and that's what I was kind of alluding to, is, you know, things can become like normality to you, right? Like you start to accept situations, you start to accept how you feel, you start to accept your environment, and you think this is just how it is. One of the things that a lot of these practices remind you, or even kind of, you know, you're saying, you know, the light bulb, is that you don't realize how much shit was actually weighing you down. Like, and you don't even know till you, like you said, you feel good afterwards. You're like, whoa, like you're a different, different state of mind. Your outlook completely changes, and a lot of it was all you internal. It's just 100%. Give that self-love, that self-care, right? And that sets you up, and that projection of life and what you project changes simply because you forget. And that's the one thing I always get reminded. Sometimes, you know, it's like, you're almost your own worst enemy, because you're willing to just kind of yeah, you know, my back is sore, or you know what I mean? And then constantly you kind of loosen up your back, or you loosen up your hips. Like for me, you know, the hips have always been like something that's always kind of held me down. You know, something I've always had to focus on, right? From an injury and stuff like that. And man, how I feel afterwards, you know, like through yoga or through doing mobility, you know, whatever it is to kind of give love back to the body, man, you just feel different. You know, you're just happier, and you know, you deal with, like, you don't realize how all of that affects just how you deal with things day to day. Like, you know what I mean? It really does affect how you deal with things day to day, how you talk to people, how you handle situations. If something goes wrong, how you deal with it in that time, you know, things like that. So I just feel like you don't really realize how much things are weighing you down, you know. But going back to that free diving, what was that like, man? What was your personal experience like? So it was the first time you done it?
First time I done it.
Yeah. So what was it like for yourself, like when you know, that whole experience?
So it was something I always wanted to do because I like to experience, I guess, pushing my body and understanding its capabilities and what it can do, and seeing other people do amazing feats. I kind of want to see, okay, how can my body do that? Like, I want to learn, I want to feel it, I want to experience it. And so I remember the first time you do like dry land stuff where you practice holding your breath and you go through the drills. And then you're out in the water at a buoy and you dive down, you follow a rope, and then you come back up. And I remember the first time, like 2 meters, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to drown. And I quickly came back up.
Yeah.
You feel like that rise of carbon dioxide, and your body feels
you realize shit's about to get real.
Yeah. But it's literally the body's super safety mechanism. So you feel that urge to breathe. You feel that, oh, I'm going to suffocate, I'm going to run out of air. But it's a false alarm, and you have probably at least a minute after you feel that, and you can keep going. And once I understood that, and I just remember each dive, like, oh, just one more step down as you're like pulling the rope down, and that feeling comes, but it's just like literally a false alarm. It's in the background, and you realize, oh no, my body can keep going. And then there's this second wind you get when you hit the 10-meter mark, where the water's cold. And your spleen, it just releases all these red blood cells filled with oxygen. And it literally feels like, or at least for me, it felt like I took a new breath. And I remember I got to the 10-meter mark, I felt the change in temperature in the water, and it just felt like I took a new breath of air. And then I was like, oh man, I can be down here forever. And I started to enjoy myself. But the funny thing was, my instructor, he has to go down. Your instructor goes down with you to keep an eye on you.
Yeah.
And I was taking my sweet ass time. And he's looking at me like, hurry up, like, go down, come up.
My name's Danzai for a reason.
So I got told off after that. I was like, you know, do the dive properly. But it's good that you got to experience that. So it was really nice to kind of unlock that within myself and realize that, oh no, like my body is like more capable than I think it is, and that was really nice.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, like, is there other things that you kind of like, little goals that little things that you want to experience, something like the free dive that's in your peripherals, or that's something you would like to experience down the track?
Yeah, I think free diving as a regular thing is definitely on my hit list.
Where was it done, if you don't mind me asking you?
Yeah,
like,
I did it in Cairns.
Oh, okay.
Far North Queensland.
Yeah.
It was unreal.
That would have been crazy, man.
So yeah, it's definitely on my hit list because anything to do with the breath and the body, I really feel it's kind of like a yellow brick road for me. Like Qi Gong was a great example where I was just really drawn to it, and I started to feel a lot with it and discover more things about my body. And freediving as well, I just had this joy I got out of the experience, and just being super present in a different way. I really enjoyed, so making that a more regular thing. And then what else on the hit list? Yeah, for now that maybe some more cold exposure, maybe another mountain.
Yeah. With breathing, I mean, even that, man, like just the whole ideology behind breathing and breath work. I mean, I'm not in tune enough to say whether it's a common thing, but I am seeing it a lot more. Seeing obviously with, you know, like with athletes and things like that, it's becoming a common thing. Them having a coach or you know, someone working doing breath work with them. That itself is crazy, man. Like, just, you know, even just like whether whether people meditate, or, you know, the like certain practices that involves breath work. just that alone, like being able to control your breathing, but even getting your breath to be able to listen to your body and how your body responds to like formal regulatory kind of breathing, right? Just how that has an ability to impact you and how you feel and how you start your day and all that. Talk a little bit about that, man. Talk a little bit about the importance of breath work, and I'm sure someone like you who's really in tune with what's going on probably knows and probably seeing it, different variations and people kind of getting more involved and getting a better understanding for how it works and working with people, right? Talk a little bit about the importance of that, and just for a regular person, doesn't even have to be an athlete, but everyday living, man. Breathe. Yeah, everyone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the things I love about breath work is you can only ever breathe in the present moment. The mind can wander to the past or to the future, but if you're focused on the breath, you're fully present. And there's no worries in the present moment, like at least no immediate worries. And so when you're breathing, nasal breathing is superior to mouth breathing. The way oxygen is absorbed, the way nitrogen is absorbed as well. And there are many ways to peel an apple. So there are many different types of breath work that work and are effective and are helpful for different people in different circumstances. In yoga, very similar to Chinese medicine, we have masculine and feminine energies. Ida, Pingala in yoga, like sun and moon, and yin and yang in Chinese medicine. So the left side of your body is the feminine energy, or the passive, relaxing side. And the right side is the masculine energy, which is the more assertive, dominant side and more active. And so the left and right nostril will naturally throughout the day cycle into one being more clearer than the other as the energies within your body balance throughout the day. So typically as you wind down towards the end of the day for bed, your left nostril will be clearer to allow you to enhance the feminine energy or the relaxing energy. And then as you wake up in the morning, your right nostril might be more clearer. And then there's a breathing practice in yoga called Nadi Shodhana, which is where you just breathe alternating nostrils, and it helps to balance these energies. Because sometimes we can become a little overwhelmed, maybe at the end of the day reading too many emails or checking social media or something, and the right nostril is super clear before we go to bed, and then it's really hard to wind down. And it's a simple practice that is kind of like an ace up our sleeve. We don't need to take anything. We just need to breathe and focus on that. But when it comes to breathing in general, we have, massive lung capacity, but not always do we use it to its full potential. In Qi Gong, I like to encourage full deep breaths to really utilize the stretching and the relaxing of the lungs. And then there's different rates of breathing that you can do. So there have been studies shown that by taking less breaths during training or physical exercise, you can teach your body to utilize oxygen more effectively, which then makes it easier to build your aerobic capacity. Rather than breathing rapidly to get enough oxygen in, you do the reverse and you teach your body to use what's there and become efficient at that.
That's an interesting one, right? Because the idea has always been, whether it's in between, say, for example, if you take combat sports, for example, in between rounds and things like that, you're always trying to, you're trying to breathe calm, but at the same time, you're trying to suck in the oxygen as well at the same time. Yeah.
Many ways to peel an apple.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, we're just crazy species, man. We got so many ways of like just being able to do so many things, and and the one thing that always stands out to me is our ability to be able to repair ourselves, man.
Oh yeah.
It's just crazy. Like, it's and a lot of it is internal. I mean, all of it is internal. And like you said, it's a mix of everything, right? Like how we spiritually feel, mentally feel, physically feel. All that. Like, I feel like has a big impact in just how you deal with day-to-day life, and even just your ambitions and and your confidence in your ability to kind of set out your goals and what you're trying to do and things like that. Obviously even just manifesting and things like that, which reminds me, after I got to put you onto something which I think you'll like.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Quick thing on the breath, you just sparked my memory. Breathing is one of the best detoxifiers. Every time we breathe and respire, we release carbon dioxide, but it's one of the best ways to detox your body. And when we detox physically, we can also detox emotionally. So with breath work, there are certain practices like, say, holotropic breath work or shamanic type of breath work, where we can actually utilize the breath to have an emotional release through breath work alone. So both on an energetic level, emotionally, and on a physical level, it's a powerful detoxer. And in detoxing, you feel lighter. And then, like you said, you know, your outlook on life, your perspective is lighter as well. And then that has that positive feedback cycle that just keeps bringing you up.
Yeah. It's crazy how, like, I mean, is it something that people got to go looking for, or is it something that can be?
It'll find them.
It'll find them. Yeah.
If they feel like my biggest kind of understanding is your heart is your compass. So if something makes you feel good and you're drawn to it, that's your soul's way or your heart's way of showing you, explore this, do a little bit more of this kind of thing. So if breath work is making someone curious or interested, or they're feeling like, oh, you know, I really want to do that, just listen to your heart. It will guide you there. Otherwise, it will find you.
How's what's your outlook been of recent times, man? Just with everything, right? You know, through the whole kind of pandemic and the challenges that now, like, people have had during that time, right? Mixed challenges, right? Whether it's, you know, things happening at home or just mental health, which is probably one of the biggest ones, right? What's your view on, or even I guess some of the challenges that us as human beings now, because it might seem like something in writing, like in terms of just like, you know, the pandemic hangover or whatever they want to call it, right? But you do see people being affected by it, right? Like even just the lethargic kind of side of life, and just kind of trying to get shit together again, and like the routine kind of things, and then even just kind of, you know, like the ability to kind of, you know, do so many things now. It seems like, I don't know, sometimes you can take it for you being lazy, but I think there's more to it. Like, I think mentally there's way more to it than just, oh, I'm just lazy, I can't be bothered doing it, you know. I feel like a lot more has happened than just, you know, like, oh, many COVID, like, to us as humans and humanity, and just the way we live and the way we've been and how life has kind of changed. What do you kind of see some of those challenges being, and you know, and I guess what's your outlook on it?
Yeah, so I view laziness as conditioning more than actually being lazy. Like, if you look at consciousness in the sense of, you have like an altered ego, which is like the false sense of self, and then the true ego, or the soul's personality, like your true self. I don't believe either of them are lazy. I believe your altered ego is either working really hard to keep you, you know, off your true self, and that your soul is working really hard to keep you onto your true self. And that laziness is just conditioning, you know, what we've been exposed to in our environment, that we have either adopted into our own habits, beliefs from other people that we've adopted. And then that's just kind of built its own momentum, and then we've been stuck in that. So obviously with the lockdowns and stuff, being at home more often and letting that environment, which is typically a comforting environment, a relaxing environment, and then kind of merging that with work or with training or other things like that. And, you know, being the first time that it's actually happened, and having to experience it and learn from it. So I see everything that's happened in the last 2 years as a blessing in disguise and an opportunity for change. Because if, say, for example, something wasn't working the first time around, maybe with a work situation, the lockdown kind of gave us time to slow down and to reevaluate, you know, is what I'm doing really bringing me happiness? Is what I'm doing bringing me joy? Do I like what I'm doing, or am I just doing it for the sake of doing it?
Think about it now.
It's your time to think about it, yeah. And I'm sure many people did, and it's an opportunity to explore, you know, creative outlets, things that we didn't have time to do because we were working so much. But then during the lockdown, when we had all this spare time, it's like, oh, I can practice my art or my music some more, or, you know, start this new side hustle, something like that. And then in other situations where rebuilding oneself up, as a personal trainer, I had a few clients put on a little bit of weight during the lockdowns just because, it was mentally and emotionally draining. Work was affected, business was affected, and it put a lot of people into this survival mode kind of thing. And so in order to rebuild yourself back up, I like to think of it as the phoenix rising from the ashes. The phoenix can only rise from the ashes, and we can only build ourselves up once we've hit our own personal definition of rock bottom. And if we are in the middle point of that phase or that transition, sometimes it's hard to have the momentum to kind of keep climbing up, or even the motivation to keep climbing up. So I see it as the psyche's way of breaking us down so we can learn to build ourselves back up and to strengthen that ability to build ourselves back up, so that eventually when we get to the next level, we have that experience of building ourselves back up, whether it happened once, twice, 3 times, however many times, so that when we are faced with that next level of growth or development, we've had that experience of overcoming, personal self-sabotage, personal breaking down to overcome and to actually get to that next level. This is my perspective.
Yeah. And a very good perspective. I mean, a lot has been said about the negative, right? But obviously there's, the yin and the yang. There's there's 2 sides to it, right? And I feel like it's all on how you also embrace this situation. You know
Totally.
what I mean? And I think sometimes you gotta take what the universe gives you, receive it, and everything's outlook, man. It's something that you're not gonna get straight away, but I think when you start to do things, and subconsciously sometimes manifest. Sometimes something I've come to understand, listening to to some other people, and it's that manifestation it's not just simply just, it's also something that can subconsciously you can work towards, and it appears and you're like, oh, like it's not something that you wrote down, or it's not something that, it's something that was consciously, you thought about it, but you didn't know subconsciously you were working towards it, and it's not too, I feel like certain things like that come about and you see it and you enjoy and appreciate that process of, hey, setting out to do something or visioning something. And, some things are weeks, some things are months, some things are years. And then when you see it and you do it, like I was saying earlier, other people may not understand that, but you got to like receive it wholeheartedly, and when you do, the confidence and the elation you get from experiencing that opens doors for other things as well, right? Because you start to think, it's like a trickle down effect, and I feel like it's not till you experience those things you realize, whoa, like this thing we call life is way deeper than way more deeper than what they think, what they've told you, and that's how I am, and I think that's why we connect, and that's why I appreciate what you do, because you're allowing people to go to places that I feel like, number one, they did not exist, they didn't think existed, sorry, is what I'm trying to say. And that they didn't know they needed to go there, and at the same time you're allowing people to really experience, like it's like, having a son, bro. Like I see the joy in his face and I'm thinking to myself, like, I never want him to lose that joy, you know what I mean? Like just the joy of even now, like sitting up, and the joy of like, I'm teaching him how to stand and walk, and like the whole movement, grabbing things, and him grabbing things and putting things in, like with his toys, like sensory stuff, and I think to myself, like, man, like at that, like obviously life is going to evolve, and you're not always going to be a kid, but it's that passion, it's that when you were so sure of something or you wanted something, like, and that's what I was telling, like the guy I was telling you I was speaking to before you came, my mate, I was like, man, like you don't realize throughout your life, even like what you would consider being a dark time, right? Or what I would consider being a significant point in my life where so many things were going wrong, or whatever it is, but where so much growth happened at the same time. I said, you don't realize how many things we did that we set out to do, but we just don't appreciate it the same way because we're always searching for more. But now I realize when I look back, fuck, I did this, I did this, I did this. And like, I remember at the time I wanted to do it so badly. Or I wanted this so badly. And you actually don't realize that, man, I did end up doing it, you know, and I think somewhere along the line you forget your own possibilities and ability to do something, you know, that you set out to do. And really, like you said, man, what's happiness, you know? You know, like, you know, it's always a tricky subject, right? Because like, it's just because someone says, hey man, I want financial freedom, doesn't mean that they set out thinking all I want to do is try to make money. You know what I mean? It's two different things, you know. The ability to want to do whatever you want, or live life the way you want, that's what everyone should want, you know what I mean? To live out the life that you want. But I think, yeah, somewhere along the way, like, especially like in the harder times, like, those thoughts can be suppressed, you know, and your outlook on what your ability to be able to set out what you're trying to do might not seem possible, because, you know, I feel like your thoughts are everywhere else except your own. You know, you're looking at everything else, you're looking at everyone else, and you're putting these building blocks in your head, because you're essentially comparing. You're essentially seeing someone else's journey and thinking, whoa, like, you know, or, you know, it's almost like self-respect in a way too, because I think you don't respect yourself as much as you respect others, you know, in a certain way. It's like, I take it back to like even sparring and things like that, right? You got to respect your opponent, you got to respect who you're sparring, but at the same time, if you don't respect your capabilities and what you're trying to do, that will play out. That will play out in that, you know, in that session, because you're not confident, you know. Confident doesn't mean you know, you got to go in there like, oh man, you know, against a guy that's double or triple your experience and be like, no, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Confidence meaning I have belief in my ability, and it may not be as good of a session, but when you look back, you realize it was way better than what it could have been, just because, you know, kind of your state of mind. Like, I had a really bad session on Saturday, but I'm not angry at no one except myself, because I feel like I slacked off a little bit. Like the night before, I slept a bit later, and, you know, like I got up and I kind of slept in a little bit, kind of got up. Like, I have a ritual that I do, man, where I loosen up my body, everything before I go to the gym. You know what I mean? And this was one of the sessions where it just popped up, like, towards the end of the week, like, hey, do you want to go spar these guys in another gym, and etc. And like, man, like afterwards, I could have been so much more better. It doesn't mean that the guy that I sparred was really experienced. It might mean he might have not gone any other way, or it doesn't mean that, you know, I would have still had the same challenges. But I know personally I could have been better. But I'm not blaming no one, because you know, my ritual, even I slid off a little bit, it projected into what I was trying to do, you know. And the flip side is, I see what a good ritual, or like, you know, the processes that I have to ensure that I get the best outcome in when I go to training sessions, right? Good or bad. I've seen the benefits of it, you know, so... and
hindsight will always offer that kind of wisdom. Like, we go through the experience to get that wisdom.
And I wasn't mad after. Like, even when I was talking to my teammates, I was like, you know, man, I even talked to my coach afterwards, and we have a hug, and I'm like, man, I should have been better prepared this morning, you know. I just slacked off, like, you know, and I had a good week and everything, you know. I came back from the flu, so I was fighting hard to get myself back up, but it was a lesson.
Blessing in disguise.
It was a blessing in disguise, because, you know, it's not something that I always do. It's not something that I do all. It's just that one day. But I realized what I'm building towards, like, I can't do that. You know what I mean? But I saw the result of it. You know what I mean?
Better to happen now than right before
exactly. Exactly, man. Yeah. So, you know, I think sometimes as well, bro, when people are like talk in as passionate as the way you talk, and even like, I got mates that are, you know, kind of like work with men, you know, in terms of coaching. They see the facade side of, you know, they think it's a facade. They think it's like, you know, almost fairy tale, right? Like, just the way you share experiences on life and the outlook and just what you can be as a human being going through these different practices and things like that. But yeah, it's not till you do it, and it's not till you go looking for it and having an understanding for it, you don't realize like I said before, life is way, way more deeper than what you've made it out to be, you know, what they're telling you, you know what I mean? There's so much more experiences there than I think people realize, you know what I mean? And that's why for me, I'm an experienced guy. Like even when it's my wife's birthday or whatever it is, I love to do something where it's an experience, because that's the way I look at life. It's just a fucking experience, man.
Yeah,
like everything, nothing is final, like nothing is certain, and nothing is always permanent, right? Like whether it's whatever journey you're on, you got to just take it wholeheartedly, man, because it may not be there, right? Like it may not be there, it may be something different, but you just got to wholeheartedly accept it when it's there, you know. And like you said, man, being present, you know.
Yeah.
But for those that want to find you, which they should, you know, to look into, I mean, obviously I'll be sharing your socials and things like that. One thing obviously that I've texted you about, which I haven't actually said in a podcast, is, man, I love your online content, what you're doing with the videos and stuff, which, you know, if people haven't got onto it, you know, Danzai puts out some reels, and he, you know, drops some beautiful little gems and diamonds, life diamonds that we can pretty much use every day for our lives. How did that I mean, obviously, you know, like I could see you doing that, but in terms of what's a thought process in terms of, is there certain things that you would like to share with the world, and you kind of break it up over a period of time and put it out, or is it, do you go by your feel of what you think people need to kind of receive when you put that content out?
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I've learned over the years that I believe everyone sees the world differently, but I feel like I naturally had a tendency to really see things differently and to be able to see multiple viewpoints of a similar situation. A friend of mine put me onto human design, and in human design I realized I represented a reflector type, and this was evident of having a unique perspective. And so I was like, oh, this, you know, is starting to make a little bit sense. So I personally think it's a bit of a gift, and being able to share my wisdom that I've accumulated over the years, or the wisdom over the years, and just offer a new way of seeing things, because reality to me, I believe it's objective. Everything is objective. It is what it is. But our response to it, which is our perspective and how we feel about it, creates our experience. Like, two people can look at a couch and one person can be like, oh, I cannot wait to, you know, relax on the couch. It's going to be awesome. And the other person's like, oh, I don't like that color, or whatever. But the couch didn't create the experience. The perspective did. And by offering new perspectives, you know, through the reels and just different ways we can look at life and how we can create our own unique experience from it, by seeing everything as a blessing, by finding the silver lining in everything, by optimizing our perspective and, you know, practicing optimism, we can get a better experience. We can get a better emotional response, or at least one that feels more uplifting than a traditional kind of thing. And so, yeah, through the reels, this is something I wanted to share with people, and as you mentioned before, turning it into an online course where I can share this with people on a greater scale. I like to think of it as the seventh sense, or teaching the seventh sense. So we have the first six: sight, taste, touch, smell, sound, and then intuition as the sixth sense. But then the seventh sense I like to call mind bending, which is where we bend our mind through perspective. We see things in a different way. Even though we're aware of other perspectives, we choose to focus on the one that we feel is best for us in the moment. And by putting enough energy into that, we then create that as an experience. And it has this cascading effect where it builds on itself. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Mental alchemy.
Yeah, which is big, man. Which is big. It's I'm really starting to understand and appreciate it, you know, a lot more in my life now. Like, and even just my outlook on, I've like almost made peace, like not so much peace with the fact, but just I like, I know that I may not set out to live out what I'm trying to build, but I'm not discouraged by it. I'm just excited by the journey, you know, and it may seem simple to come to terms with that, but really in this life it's not, you know. Like, a lot of things, you know, you can go through a lot of thoughts, but yeah, just, you know, it's almost like setting, like for me, it's like also setting the platform, setting the stones for the next generation, you know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm sitting right now, is like building towards what I believe and almost my gift to the world, with everything that I'm doing, and the bigger vision for what I'm trying to do, for not just for myself, but also, I guess, my legacy and what I wanna leave, but also knowing that even if that doesn't end up playing out, having the building blocks for it to play out in a different way for the next generation.
Setting the foundation.
Setting the foundation,
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where I'm at, and that's how I've been taking all the little things. That's where I've been taking the fight, like, going pro and everything. That's the way I'm looking at it. It's no medal or belt is going to define what I feel like the more powerful thing is going to be from me going through that experience and being able to share that with, certain people. And in time, people will understand what's motivated me to go down that route, and multiple things, you know what I mean? My grandma being one big part, who, rest her soul, passed away last year, but just really, really understanding all the little things that you do and the effect it can have on people. And not only that, just the next generation, which is my sons, and what I mean, my son, and and nephews and kids, anyone, and people from my community, man. You know what I mean? It's way more, and that it's way more deeper than just competition and wanting to compete, and it's way more deeper than that. And I think I've come to understand that. And it's not about being held in a parade at the end and being like, hey, it's knowing that, hey, we all have a role to play while we're here too, man. You know what I mean? And I've come to peace with that. Whereas I think in my early 20s, I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be that person, that can do this and do that, and can, live this certain life that I visualize, and can do all these, you know what I mean? And yeah, man. And I think over time it just changed because of just my personal experiences and in life. And I realized, hey, man, this life is way deeper, way fucking deeper. And when I really sit back and reflected where I'm at, and my elders and what they did, and and starting to really see the platforms they they maybe subconsciously didn't understand that they were doing, right? Their understanding of was probably a bit different, and lives were different, right? Like the era they came from is different to the era that I'm in, right? And I grew up in. So yeah, man, I'm really starting to kind of look at things differently in that sense, and I think it's also brought a sense of peace and calm, that there's not this weight on me that I got to live a certain type of life.
Less pressure.
Yeah. Like in terms of just materialistic things, and it's just like it's always been about experience. And I realized that the biggest energy, the thrive I get is when I go through an experience, and and get to share it, and with my family and etc. So I think all these things over time, the Qi Gong, the countless Qi Gong sessions and things like that, and all the different, the ice baths and all those things, yoga, and, putting myself in those situations has made me realize, man, like happiness is way fucking bigger than a dollar sign, man. And people aren't just saying that as a typical kind of statement, money doesn't bring, it really is an outlook and a perspective thing. And I think you realize, man, like Bob Marley said, when that interviewer asked about being rich, and he goes, what do you mean by rich? Do you think money makes me rich? He goes, I'm rich in life, I'm rich in heart, I'm rich in spirit. And you start to really appreciate what that means,
Yeah, totally.
But, we can go on forever about that, Danzai. Man, I just want to say, I really appreciate it. Obviously, I'll share your socials and stuff. I love what you do, bro. I love what you do for people. I know that you do it wholeheartedly, and I know that you're far from someone that just is about not just business and what I mean, an exchange of services or whatever. I know that when you personally, when you do take these people on a journey, you fucking take them on a journey, bro. And I can tell you right now, anyone's watching, you don't fucking come back the same. Doesn't mean you come back worse off. You just come back different. And it's always been positive. It's all an outlook, but it's a positive. It's an eye opener. And man, I'm sure we'll link up and do our things. But I love our chats, man. I love talking to you. Always love touching base with what you're doing. I think what you're doing is great. I think it's amazing. I think everyone should be doing it, personally. And if it's something you want to experience, it's something that you should at least experience once in your life, if that's what it's going to be. And I think you'll really understand that this life shit is deeper, man. Way deeper than we think. And I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks so much for coming, huh?
Grateful to be on. It's awesome.
Cheers,
I see
my boy.
both evolving.
Yeah, I love
awesome.
it, man. I love it. Yeah. And I think it's always good for me to be able to talk to you when I'm in a certain state of mind, or I guess a certain place in my life as well. And I think it's just good to share it and get your perspective, which is what it's all about, man. But no, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to what crazy conversation we're gonna have next, and I'm sure so much. Yeah, I'm sure so much is gonna happen from now till then too. So, I look forward to it, bro.
Sweet. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, bro. Thanks, guys.